Hello, everyone. It is Queen Cole here, and it is part 3 of the series Transparency Talks in partnership with the I Am Academy. I am worthy of rest. Rest helps us recover from physical and mental effort and can be either active or passive. It can be tricky to find time for rest in our hectic, plugged in lives. However, if you think of rest as just as essential as sleeping, then you're more likely to prioritize behaviors that promote relaxation. Joining me today to discuss the 7 types of rest is Serena Kumara. Kumara. She gonna correct me if I didn't say that right. But Serena is the founder of the Milk and Honey Project. Through her organization, she supports her clients in connecting with their most authentic selves. Like, don't we need that? And we need to know about this rest because that is very important. So help me welcome Serena to Light the Path.
Hey.
Hello. Tell me your last name again.
It's you got it at the same time, and it's my middle name. It's Kumara.
Got it. Kumara. That's important to get our names right. Like, we gotta do this. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your rest to be with us at 8 o'clock.
I thank you for having me. When you reached out to me, I was like, oh, boundaries and rest are my 2 faves. So I'm like, let's talk about it.
Yes, I love your posts. I love how you post on Instagram. I love when you're saying, if y'all know anything, I'm going to take a break.
I'm gonna take a break. I'm setting the scene. They tell you be consistent on Instagram. My consistency includes when I'm getting up there in tiredness. I'm gonna take a rest, and you need to take one too.
Yes, exactly. I mean, because you inspire me to. It's a reminder to me to say, you know what, Serena said, go ahead, take a rest. Let me go and take a rest. Let me get my bedtime together. And so this, what I did this year is I'm adjusting. Really, I'm usually a night owl. But because I'm in active grandma mode, I need to be up earlier. So I got to have a bedtime. I got to.
The struggle. I'm a night owl too. The struggle is like very real.
Tell us more about the Milk and Honey Project. I love the name of it. How did you come into yourself to do this?
You can look back and see so many things connected from forever. So I'm going to tell an abridged version of a story, right? Because people don't have to rest too, right? We don't have to stretch it out. But essentially, about 10 years ago, I realized that nothing in my life looked how I wanted to look. Like, it was all at once. The job that I had that I hated, I ended up having to lose right before I was signing a new lease. This is when I was living in Atlanta. I had just graduated from college. I was getting ready to sign a new lease within 2 days. That happened. All the people that I was friends with, I wasn't friends with them anymore. The person I was dating, we weren't even like, it was just, everything was awful. So then I had to move back home to Virginia, which my ego was hurt, but what I decided to do was look at, what do all those things have in common? It's me, right? And so what are we doing? How are we creating our life? And I started to pay attention to, being intentional and like the law of attraction, and then my spiritual life, and it all came together. And, life has ebbs and flows. And so just over time, more instances for me to kind of change directions even more. So it started off as a self-improvement journey. And then it became like just a self-discovery and self-love journey, right? Because I think self-improvement is, in my opinion, is not the goal. I'm already all the things. Now I need to tap into them, right? But I don't need to be better. And so 2018 is when it turned into the self-discovery, and I did my year of whatever I want. And I did whatever I wanted for that year. And I got to know myself, and I started to go to the classes and the conferences. And I was at a conference and I was like, do I want to do this? Like, I guess I do, right? And here we are. So that is the short version of a very long story.
But that is a good story. And your story is similar to a lot of people. And that's why I love having the podcast. I love doing Light the Path, because a lot of times we think like, I'm the only one going through this, and this. I mean, you're younger than me, but there was a time where I moved back to my parents' house. I'm like a grown woman, and like you said, ego. But my dad had me busting suds like I was back in high school. And I'm like, okay, Lord, what is this that you're teaching me? What lesson do I need to learn? And it was about humility. It was about being humble. Sit down and be humble and bust these suds. So I love that. I love that you're able to share that. Tell us about your upcoming class that you have coming up. Is it later this month?
Okay, so it's actually Friday. So if you are in the DFW area, I have partnered with Honeybee, Honeybee Natural Honeybee Well. And so this Honeybee Natural Honeybee Well is like a wellness store. It's really amazing. And she highlights these local vendors. And so we are partnering for something called the tea. So she is going to be making custom tea blends, and we're going to chat every fourth Friday until whenever, right? And this week we're talking about boundaries, setting boundaries and having tough conversations. And like I said, my two favorite topics are rest and boundaries. And I am just really excited for us to be able to share with each other. Obviously, I'm going to have some tips because over the years, part of self-love, you got to get good at boundaries, right? And it's going to be a good time. It's only $20. I'm really excited for the opportunity for it to be really accessible. So come join us if you're in the DFW area. It's in Grand Prairie.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good time. I'll have to make sure I repost it as well for the people that are in the Metroplex able to see it. So I love that. I mean, oof, so many good things. But let's talk about one of your favorites today, rest. I want to talk about the 7 types of rest. And these are the 7 types. So we'll just go through them. But mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, and then also creative, because I'm a creative. So I struggle with rest. So that's going to be the last one. But let's talk about that mental rest. How can we jump into mental rest? Because for myself, I'm an overthinker. One thing that I do to combat that is I always usually have a pad close by so I can jot notes that, like, I write stuff down. So I have to have something to write down by my bedside to be able to get that out. So help us overthinkers with this mental rest.
So, okay, I do something very similar. So it's not a notepad, but it's the notes in my phone to just get it out because, things are great ideas and all of that. But one thing that I do to calm my mind is I will have these shut off times for like my devices. But because I'm a creative too, right? And I also work in my passion, which means I love what I do, which means it doesn't feel like work, but then I'm still tired, right? So one of the things that I have started doing is when I'm taking downtime, it's low effort, it doesn't need a lot of mental effort. So like even in the TV shows that I watch, like my sister and my mom will send me these, like, let's have this family show, let's watch it. And it'll be some drama that's riveting. And I'm like, I don't have right now when I'm busy, I don't have the mental space. The show that I need to watch needs to be like funny so that I don't have to think and I don't have to watch and I can fall asleep on them and it's fine. So that is one way just to add something to your life that doesn't require a lot of mental effort and prioritize it, right? Like put it in your schedule. That's one of the things that helps in general is when you have a routine or a schedule to look at all the parts of it as just as important and then figuring out where you can make time, where it can fit.
That's real good. So what about on the weekends? Do you need to stick to the routine on the weekends or are the weekends free for all?
Have a separate routine for the week. I mean, every day is different, right? Like I float, right? So every day is different. I also kind of need a routine, like generally. Because I find that when I don't, that's when I start to kind of deplete. But it doesn't take anything to just redirect. I think, as a person, you know what you need. I just am a person that can go from one extreme to the other. So I need to, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's why I can't do the notes on my phone because then I'll find myself on TikTok or on Instagram or checking who watched my story. So I'm like, I gotta put that phone away.
TikTok is in and of itself that's the kind of rest I need. I need TikTok rest.
But then you'll find yourself, I have found myself, it's been an hour and I've been like, oh my goodness, an hour has passed and it goes so fast. Like TikTok time is different.
It is because you never, and it also can be stressful, like for your mind, because you don't know. You swipe up, you don't know what you're gonna see, right? It can make you laugh, it can make you cry, it can make you want to research. You don't know what's gonna happen.
Like, oh, let me go get this recipe. Let me save this. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I don't need to be thinking about food right now.
Exactly. So I don't consider TikTok rest because it's like, wait a minute, and don't let me get on messy talk, and then I gotta follow the story. Like, what happened? What did he do? Anyway, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward. Physical rest. How do we get that? Especially being busy women, going from this thing to that thing, working, trying to be creatives, all the things. How do we get that physical rest that we really need?
Well, you touched on it a little bit. Bedtime, sleep, right? The most, when people think of rest, they go straight to sleeping, because that, I feel like for some reason we justify physical rest as real rest. And I also think that when you, like, again, with that scheduling your rest is really important. I feel like I lost you. Oh no, there you are. Sorry. Scheduling your rest is really important. So, like, having an alarm on your phone that says bedtime. Another thing is do not disturb. Technology is such a big part of our lives. Turn on your, I guess, called focus now. Turning that on. Having timers on other devices, but also like setting that expectation with others in your life. Like, hey, this is my time where I'm resting. I've read that things like yoga, even though you're not like asleep and laying down, is a form of rest, and I can see that. So those are some ways.
Yeah, yoga is absolutely one of those things. Hey, Quincy, thank you for checking in with us this evening. We are talking about the 7 types of rest. So you need to be in on this because you are the godfather of podcasts and you have so many podcast episodes. I'm trying to, catch up. So thank you for checking in, Quincy. How are you? So yeah, that physical rest is very important. It's very important. And yoga is a great way. I do practice yoga, and it's like, especially when you're stretching and getting your body in motion, it's sort of what they call passive rest, even though it's not. Is it passive rest or active rest?
I feel like yoga is active rest.
Active rest. So you're not physically like lifting weights or something like that, but you're moving your body. So yeah, so it's an active rest where you can still do something, but you're not totally sleep or totally not doing anything. So I like that too. I like that too.
Because physical rest doesn't always mean sleepy. It doesn't mean sleep deprived. It just means your body needs a little bit of rest.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too that I wanted to talk about, because a lot of people get it mixed up between rest and sleep. Like they're two different things. We bring them together as synonyms, which they're really not. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how can people distinguish between I need rest and then I just need to take my butt to bed?
I mean, how do people distinguish? I feel like people's cues are often that they need rest, that something isn't functioning well, like their bodies aren't functioning or they can't think or something like that. And I think that is an indication that you need sleep. But if you're starting to find yourself maybe being like having less patience or being able to focus a little less, but you're getting the sleep that you need, then there needs to be some rest maybe in another area. And I think a way that we can do that is by labeling the things that are labor as labor. Right? It may be labor that you love. I love the work that I do, but it's still labor. And that quote, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, is just really not true, because you're still working, right? Like, you love your children. You were mentioning your grandbaby. You love your grandbaby, but that's also labor. That's social labor and all the things. So I think that also, if you take a look at all the things that you're doing, right? Because sometimes I have a conversation with people that I haven't seen in a while, and I'm like, oh, that might be why I'm feeling like I'm feeling, because I've been doing a whole lot that I don't recognize that I'm doing. Maybe I'm not feeling it yet, but I know mentally the results of all the things I'm doing, eventually, if I don't get a hold of this, is going to be a crash. So let me not wait until there's a crash. So that's a few ways to just have kind of just pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I guess this is, well, we can do with this one next, social, like getting those cues when you're around certain people that energy that you feel. So if I feel drained after every time I see Betty Sue, she's down and out and all that, then that stuff will jump on you. So how do you get that social rest too? Because sometimes you got to tell people like,
So
give me 6 feet.
I mean, that's boundary territory. So there's a couple things. So if you're noticing that you're drained around specific people, that might just be a y'all thing, right? Where that exhaustion is social exhaustion plus something else, plus this person might be emotionally draining me. Maybe I need to have better boundaries. But just generally, even if it's people that you enjoy, recognizing again that it's labor. Like I went to a brunch, I had a fabulous time on Sunday, but I was there for a long time. And I know as a person myself, the amount of space that I have for social time is limited, and I will be out of commission for a while if I spend too much time there. So I set it up that's the thing I'm doing today. Today is brunch day. So I'm going to live it up. I'm not going to pretend I'm going to come home and do some work like I always used to do, right? I'm going to just have brunch time. But I will tell you that the things that helped me to do that is when I started studying like the different systems, like your astrologies and your human design, and you're able to see, okay, just on paper, because like my particular human design type, the projector, we can't do a whole lot of like time with folk, right? And I always knew that, but seeing it on paper, I was like, okay, I don't have to fight against it anymore. So that's it. And in terms of communicating that to people, you can communicate it. You can share as much or as little as you want to, right? So it could be as simple as, hey, no, I can't do that. Or, I don't really have it right now in terms of energy. Or it can be, look, I'm exhausted. I'm not going to be very much fun if I'm around you. I've been around people too much. I mean, it just depends. And I think you know who you're speaking with. But if you're not sure, just know I can't.
Let me ask you this. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
I think I'm a mix of both.
Yeah, I'm an ambivert. That's an ambivert.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I was like, ooh, that sounds like me. I'm social. But there is a time frame. And then I have an exit plan when I go places. Like at this time, if it ain't popping, then I'm like, bye-bye. Or if it is, I'm like, okay, I'm only going to stay maybe 30 more minutes after the pop off. But I need time too. So when you said that, I was like,
you know what I'm thinking about when I met you, and I was like, she's got good boundaries. I think there was like 2 different events, my event and another event, and you were like, I'm not gonna be able to do 2 events. I was like, she got boundaries.
I can't because there have been I tell myself I'm gonna do one event a day or on the weekend because I do need that recharge time, because I do pour out to people. I'm listening actively. I'm not trying to listen to respond. I'm taking in what they're saying. I'm trying to, give my perspective. So I want to give my overflow. But once the overflow is gone, I'm like, see y'all later.
Well, can we just talk about how really that's a beautiful thing and how that's better for everybody, because you know your limits and people show up a lot of different ways when they're past their limit, but it's not always pleasant. And so I can only imagine what it would feel like if someone is opening up and sharing and all of the things, and then you're like, you have nothing left, but you still sat there. But instead you're like, I'm all done here. I love you, and I will see you next time.
Yes. If we could, my favorite thing, if we can just put a pin in this, and if we can just put a pin in this, and we can come back to it, because maybe it's something that where it's just like back and forth, the ping pong, and I'm like,
that is, honestly, that's for looking out for yourself and the rest of the relationship too, honestly. Because what happens if the pin isn't put in and you can't have the rest of, you're not in the place to have that? What is that going to be?
It's not going to be good, because I can be nice, nasty, and then you be like, did she just tell me off, or what happened? You'll be walking away like, okay, thanks. Wait, did she? I'm just telling the truth about myself. This is transparency talk, so this is what it is. We're being transparent.
Listen, I can relate. I absolutely can relate. Mine is more like nasty when it's too far. So look, we growing, we learning, it's a part of it. And part of that growth is acknowledging that shadow, that keep it in check, sis.
Exactly. So since we're talking about that emotions, emotional rest. Ooh. I mean, let's get all the facets. We talking about family emotional rest. We talking about relationships, friendship. Talk about all this emotional rest. How can we do it?
Oh, I mean, it's so loaded, right? When I think of emotional rest, I think of what kind of a bandwidth do I have for my emotions and someone else's emotions, right? And like the boundaries around those. And so one of the things that I do when I'm dealing with other people is I will communicate early on in the conversation if it's going somewhere. Well, you know what? I'll let somebody know if I don't have a lot of time, or if I'm like not in a really good space to be a support for them. I will let them know in the beginning of that. Just because as a healer, people like, I would talk to her, and I don't have it today. And I think another part of it is for your own emotions, allowing yourself the space to release them, right? Like maybe you don't necessarily want to talk about it, but you just want to cry, and you need to do that. And you don't want to judge it. Just give yourself the space to release them. Because I think not half, but a lot of the emotional labor we have is the judgment that we give ourselves for the emotions that we have. So if we could just feel them and live in them for a second and let them out, it may not have the same amount of impact that it has when we're trying to figure out, well, is it okay if I feel this way? So that's my take on it.
Ooh, let's talk about a good cry. Let's just talk about a good cry, like snot, ugly, good cry. Sink it down in the shower cry. That's what I'm talking about. Just like,
do you not feel better after that though?
The release of it. It's just like it just all go down the shower drain, the water drain. Just whoop.
No, seriously. I mean, that is one of the best releases. Sometimes when I'm just high anxiety, I don't really can't put my finger on it. I'll put on a really sad song or put on a sad movie just so it can crank it up and I can get it out and I can go do the rest of my things. Because it's just, that healing, and things are held in your body and they just need to come out.
Yeah, I find myself clenching my jaws, like right now. Like, ooh, so when I start feeling that little, I'm like, ooh, I need to get a good cry in. I need to get a good stretch in. I got to get this out. Mm-hmm.
And that stretching is another one. And that yoga that you were mentioning, I don't know the reason behind it. I'm sure there is research behind it, but yoga will activate me emotionally. It really has before, whatever you need to do. And anytime that you can blend the different kinds of rest together, I'm here for it.
Okay. We have one comment here. Quincy says, emotional rest is so important. Your brain and heart need a break sometimes.
He's right.
Yes, because sometimes them things don't be in sync. Why the brain be over here real logical and the heart be over here all crazy, don't know what's going on?
Listen. It's so true. And that's the thing about rest. The difference between just sleep and rest is, because yes, you can go to sleep, but if you haven't rested those other parts of you, you're going to wake up with the same experience you were having, the same feelings you were having, the same exhaustion.
Exactly. Let's talk about, because see, you said you were a healer. What about spiritual rest? How can we navigate that?
So I think of two different sides of spiritual rest. So one of them is just honoring the spiritual side of yourself. So whatever that looks like. So if you are connected to a particular faith, getting somehow involved in a way that is comfortable and feels good to you, right? It doesn't push you past your limits. Meditation, going within is another way to do that, right? But on the other side of it, so many of us are going within and we are learning more about ourselves, right? And we're doing our healing work. and it can become almost overwhelming. So there's an opportunity to disconnect from that and allow yourself to just be without all the analysis, without, trying to be the best version of you, which there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a great version of you. But sometimes I have found once people make the decision to go on a journey to become better or more aware, it can almost feel like a trap. And so sometimes to just connect from that and allow yourself to just be in the moment and experience it can be another kind of spiritual rest. And then if you work in any kind of healing, part of that is allowing yourself to just be a friend, right? And not have to be the counselor, the helper in every relationship all the time, right? Having hours, setting boundaries in terms of clients or mentees or things of that nature. So that's three sides to that.
Yeah, because you're so right. You can, when you were saying that, I was thinking like you can start overdosing on the whole personal growth and development, and just going and going and going, and then you just drowning in it, and it's like you can get overwhelmed.
Yes, I call that like a self-help boot camp. Like, don't put yourself in boot camp necessarily. And I've had to tell myself that. I've told clients that. I've told people like family members that. Like, the goal is not to fix you. You good. Like, you want to be better, but you're going to stress yourself out and go into some space you don't want to go in. If you don't allow yourself, you are a spiritual being having a human experience, to have that human experience too.
Absolutely. Belinda, thank you for checking in. Queen B in the house. She says, so true. Woo, yeah. So we definitely got to do that. We got to do that for ourselves. Now, this is the final one. This is the one that I usually, this one, the creative rest and the mental rest, those two be tripping your girl up. So let's talk a little bit about the creative rest. How can we do that when we're creators? We were created to create.
Listen. So one thing that works for me is being an observer of someone else's creativity. So I don't have to be creating all the time, right? Because that is a high energy expenditure. Let's just be clear. We love it. It feels great, but it is a high energy expenditure when you are creating something. So if that looks like, going into nature, that looks like going to a play or going to an art exhibit, or anything where you get to just be an observer who is experiencing someone else's creativity is a way to get that rest.
Yeah, those are good. And there, you have to, in order to be more creative, you got to chill out sometime too. You can't just be in overdrive, just overload, create, doing. And what I also learned is that when I am like, I usually take a day to create posts and all that, but I have transition time. So, okay, I'm going to say, okay, Instagram, this is what it's going to be. And then for 15 minutes, I'm just going to, maybe go get some water or just sit on the floor and stretch or do something that's not creative in order for me to, plug through all that to try to keep going.
And those systems and routines, again, coming up again, are really important. Because then you can start to factor, well, this is the routine and this is where rest fits in here. But sometimes when we don't have that, we don't have no idea how long we spend it on anything. And then the rest just
is out the door.
Falls to the wayside for sure.
Yes. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you for doing it. One last thing I want to ask you is, these days, what is one of your favorite affirmations?
Oh, well, if we're talking about rest, mine is there's magic in my rest. And the reason why it's that is when I think about the times that I've been stuck in an area and I step back from whatever the problem is, all of a sudden the answer pops up. If I'm well rested, I create better. Things manifest a little bit quicker. And so I'm able to recognize that it's not just in my doing that amazing things happen. It's also in my rest.
Ding. See, and this is why I had to have you on here, because that's gangster. I love that because that sounds so good. It sounds more intriguing than somebody just say, just don't do it. Just chill. Like, there's still creativity in that. It's like you're giving yourself that permission, doing it without guilt.
Have you not been like, I just cannot figure this out, but I'm gonna go to bed, I'm too tired, and then you wake up and that's the first thing you know the answer to immediately?
Yep.
Just saying.
Hey, you telling the truth. You telling the truth. That's why I said I gotta have Serena on here because she know about rest, and we all need this. Even though I know people have been working at home and things like that, but just the stress of life, period. You still need rest, whether you're working at home, whether you're working out in the field. We still need to make time for that rest.
Yes.
So, what final words do you have for someone who maybe is still struggling with this, even though they say, those sound good? What's your final encouragement to them to say, hey, get some rest?
My final encouragement is, do you believe that you are worthy of feeling good and experiencing life in a full way? And if you're not resting, your cup is not going to be full. So if you believe that you are worthy of enjoying your life and experiencing it the way that it should be experienced, then you are worthy of rest. Take a nap. Follow the nap ministry, something.
Yes, tell everyone where they can find you at.
So you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Milk and Honey PRJCT. The vowels are dropped in project. My website is milkandhoneyproject.com. I'm on TikTok under Serena Kumara. And I think and Pinterest at Milk and Honey PRJCT.
Ooh, yes. I know that's lovely over there. I'm going to have to go follow you over there on Pinterest.
Okay, it's like 3 posts, but we're getting there. Just want to set the expectation.
Okay, well, Serena, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on Light the Path today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a good conversation. I had a good time.
Thank you. All right, everyone. That is it. That is the part 3 of the Transparency Talks. And I got to tell y'all about next week, because next week is the 4th and final installment of the Transparency Talk. And it will be the finale of Light the Path podcast. Your girl is gonna go on and do some other things. So if you would like to be on next week to talk about and to hear about what else I will have going on besides the podcast, because I'm gonna be wrapping up in a bow next week and just putting it on the shelf. So until then, y'all stay tuned. And this particular broadcast will be available tomorrow morning on all audio platforms and also on YouTube. Y'all have a good night. See you later.